Shortstop is officially a problem for the Atlanta Braves. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, a production of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. I want to talk about last night's game and how, yes, Martin Perez got into an early hole, but the offense could just not seem to figure out how to dig out of a not insignificant but not overwhelming deficit. I want to talk about the bye versus the wild card. And does that matter? This is a segment for listener Valerie, who asked for this specifically. But before we do that, I think it's pretty safe to say shortstop's a problem for the Braves. We have all enjoyed the story of Jimmy Baseball. I've been one of the main ones there riding that train and pushing the Jimmy Baseball thing, and all, to the point where when the broadcast used it and then when MLB used it, people were sending those tweets to me. But Jim Jarvis last night, and like the hard part is, he got on base last night. He also had a sacrifice bunt. But his OPS is now 582. And on the season, 219 average, 268 on base, 314 slug. His WRC plus is a 60. I know his slug starts with the threes. I know that he has a home run. And that part of the issue last year with Nick Allen was Nick Allen's slug literally was 251. It was lower than his on base, which was still only 284. Nick Allen had a 535 OPS. Again, Jimmy Baseball, 582. And if people wanted to get rid of Nick Allen for the 53 WRC plus he had last year, Jim Jarvis is at a 60. And when you sort every single shortstop with at least 100 plate appearances at shortstop this year, there's 42. There are only 4 with a lower WRC plus than Jim Jarvis. Trevor Story is at a 50. Yikes. There were people who were asking for us to trade for Trevor Story before the season. At least with Jim Jarvis, he's making the league minimum. So it could be worse. Trevor Story is on a 6-year, $140 million deal, and he's making $25 million this year. Ezekiel Tovar has a WRC plus of 45. He signed for 7 years and $63.5 million, although he's only in the 3rd year of the deal, so he's only making $5.2 million this year. But they have a guy who is one of the 3 worst hitters in baseball at shortstop, and they're going to pay him $8, $11, $14, and $16 million in the next couple seasons. Tristan Gray of the Twins has a 42 WRC plus. They called up their top prospect to replace him. And Colt Emerson, when he moved from third base to shortstop for the Mariners, had a 42 WRC plus at short, and they optioned him back to AAA. And then it turns out he was hurt, and so they put him on the Major League IL. But nobody below Jim Jarvis still has a job. And I'm pretty sure Story's injury, he's not coming back this year, right? But Tovar still is playing short. Tristan Gray got replaced by Kalen Culpepper. Emerson was going to get optioned down. And then the guys right above him, Jared Triolo in Pittsburgh. He was an injury replacement for Connor Griffin. Luis Angel Acuna. He was an injury and rest replacement for Colson Montgomery. Jim Jarvis is a fun player. The defense is fun to watch. He's got a much better arm than I realized. He can go, he can pick it. He does occasionally have some lapses of attention or lapses of concentration, and he's got dropped a couple pop-ups, but he's a fun player. From a offensive perspective, he's not currently a major league hitter. Now, I'm not saying that means he's never going to be. The book is not closed. And something I need people to understand whenever these kind of things happen is just because a player struggles the first time doesn't mean they're always going to struggle. At the same time, he wasn't necessarily a very heralded prospect until Atlanta got him and put some swing changes in. And I think it's pretty obvious that there are tools here too, but currently he is not a major league caliber hitter. If you weren't happy with Nick Allen last year, you shouldn't be happy with Jim Jarvis now. And I'll point out, Nick Allen was a better defender. And I don't mean that as a slight to Jim Jarvis. Nick Allen was Gold Glove caliber. He was actually, despite not playing short for the final month of the season after they claimed Ha-Seong Kim, he was still one of the 3 finalists for NL Gold Glove. He's one of the best shortstop defenders in baseball. He just was swinging a wet noodle at the plate with 0 power. Fun fact, he does have 2 homers for the Astros this season, which is wild to me. And the tough part here is Jarvis hasn't played well, but the Braves also just haven't used Ha-Seong Kim. Since he came back from the injured list on August 3rd, he has 3 plate appearances. 3. And that is despite Jim Jarvis going 2 for 26 with 2 singles, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts in that stretch. So Jim Jarvis not producing at the moment. That's a 188 OPS for Jarvis. And it's a slump. It's just clearly a slump. But despite that, Ha-Seong Kim has had 3 plate appearances. And I'm not saying he was tearing things up in AAA. His expected stats in AAA was a 246 average, 360 on base, 368 slug. He whiffed about 16% of the time. He had a couple barrels in there. His average exit velocity was like 90 miles an hour, but he did have a good number of hard hit balls. He had, he ripped a 109 double. What was this? He had 10 batted balls of 100 miles an hour or more. He wasn't producing offensively from a raw statistics number, but his batted ball profile was much better than when he returned to Atlanta's roster earlier in the year. And so now you're in this weird place of you're playing a shortstop who's not producing. You're not playing a shortstop who didn't produce earlier in the season. You spent a full month getting him healthy on rehab and then got rid of your fallback emergency depth option in Jorge Mateo to keep him, and you're not playing him either. And I want to be clear. Jorge Mateo, I mentioned that Jarvis had a 60 WRC plus. Jorge Mateo had a 79, which it's not like he was playing great, but it would have given you another option. He only had 119 at-bats or plate appearances here at shortstop, and that's combining what he's done with Tampa Bay as well. That's not just Atlanta. When you look at just Atlanta, he had a WRC plus of 70. Meanwhile, at shortstop, Mauricio Dubon's put up a 109 WRC plus. So 270 average, 308 on base, 460 slug. That's just his time at shortstop. That's not anywhere else. And so it's like you have Kim, who didn't do anything. You have Jarvis, who was hot and then cooled off. You have Mateo, who was vaguely fine, but also ran a 32% strikeout rate at shortstop. And you have Dubon. And now you don't have Mateo. I think number one, the best configuration of the lineup is with Mauricio Dubon at shortstop. And in the postseason, you're going to do that. But you're at the point now where it would have made a lot of sense while you were hot to give Ha-Seong Kim a chance to see what he could do. And the problem there, which a lot of people said when they brought Ha-Seong Kim back, and I was on the record as saying you should have just paid the money and traded him to try to get anything out of him. You got Jarvis or Rafael Montero last year. You should have just paid to let him go play for somebody else and tried to find something, anything, a lottery ticket relief prospect or anything for him. But now you're in a place of you can try to go to Kim now, knowing that Since he came off the IL, he's barely played in 2 weeks. So in essence, you've had him benched for 2 weeks. So any possible momentum that he could have built while being on that rehab set is gone. You can continue to let Jarvis not be that good. I mean, be in a terrible slump, and see if, like last night, he can do little things to help you, like bunt and move runners over, that kind of stuff. You can try that. Or you can go ahead and make the switch to Dubón. And none of the options are great, because if you go to Dubón, that means that there's going to be games where you have to figure it out in the outfield, right? It's going to be harder to put Ronald at DH if you have Dubón at shortstop every day, because that's when you use him in the outfield, right? That's when you use Dubón in left, is Yastrzemski's in right, Ronald's DHing. But you've got to do something. I think when you're in this point where you are right now, where the offense, if your offense was hitting like it was beginning of July, or it was April, and you were super hot, that's one thing. But in your last 10 games, albeit with the caveat of 6 playoff type starters, in your last 10 games, the offense is hitting 209 with a 622 OPS. You've scored on average, you've averaged 3.3 runs a game, while you're allowing 3.9, and you're 4-6 in your last 10. And I'm not one of those people that is out here dooming and glooming that Atlanta's going to not make the playoffs and all of that. It is a 99.5% chance they make the postseason. I will say that if you cannot get the lead or keep the lead more than 5 games as you get into September and you face Philly 7 times, there is an outside possibility that they could go on a run against you specifically and take the division in the month of September, which would be a big blow and would really hurt. You're going to make the postseason. But now I think we've got to figure out either who can help you in the postseason or getting comfortable with our postseason lineup. And so if you want to see who can help you in the postseason, then I think the goal is you got to play Ha-Seong Kim. You got to suck it up. You got to play Kim for a week or 2 weeks or whatever to see if he can help you in the postseason. Can he get going at the plate where he can help you in the postseason? And if you don't do that, then you might as well play your postseason roster to get them comfortable, which means playing Sean Murphy more behind the plate while Dubon's your primary shortstop and Baldwin is your primary DH. And I know there's a lot of people who are against the idea of Sean Murphy being in the lineup. And one, I think you're wrong. I do think his game calling is worth it. But you've got it. This is the time, 1, to get the offense going. And 2, get ready for October. And so do one of those things. Either see if Kim can help you, or go to your best offensive lineup with Dubón at shortstop. Do one of those 2 things. But just doing these lineups, it wasn't last night, but doing these lineups where you've got Dom at DH and Jarvis at short and Dubón in left, it's not the best use of your pieces. You're neither learning anything new for the postseason or running out the postseason lineup. Pick a lane. That's all I'm saying. Just pick a lane. Either pick a lane of we're going to see we're going to give guys a chance to get hot, or pick the lane of we're going to run the postseason lineup so we can get the offense going now. Do one of those 2. Just stop doing the thing that's in the middle where you're giving Jarvis a chance, every possible chance, to try to come out of the slump and he's not doing it. And at the same time, your offense on the whole is not performing. And at the end of the day, Jarvis does not make or break the offense, right? Matt Olson's hitting, but Ozzy's got to hit. Ronald's got to hit. Those guys have to fix the offense. But while they're struggling, either run the best possible lineup around those guys or see if you can get somebody going. Pick a lane. That's all I'm saying. Just pick a lane. In just a minute, let's talk about the bye versus the wild card. The pros and cons of each, how this would work logistically, who you might face, and all of that. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. The Braves enter Tuesday half a game up on the Dodgers for the second seed in baseball. We are 74-51. They are 75-51. And the difference, honestly, is that Twins game, right? But they are 6-4 in their last 10. We're 4-6 in our last 10. And the thing here is when you look at the remaining strength of schedule, as you try to sort these top three teams, Milwaukee, LA, and Atlanta. Milwaukee's strength of schedule is 9th in baseball. They have 3 against the Braves. They have 7 against the Cubs. 3, who, by the way, just lost Dansby Swanson to the IL for a couple weeks. Did oblique issue. 3 against the Phillies, 3 against the Cardinals. Atlanta's strength of schedule is, because you have 3 against Milwaukee, 3 against Tampa Bay, who has the best record in the American League by something like 6 games. It's not even that close. 3 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Cubs, 7 against Philly, and you play the White Sox, who are the number 2 seed as we sit right now, and leading the Central by a healthy margin. And of your easiest remaining opponents, you have 3 against Colorado, and thankfully it's in Atlanta, so you feel okay about that. 1 against the Giants, who you've struggled against this year. 2 against Washington in that offense. And 2 more against the Twins, who beat you last night. So Atlanta has a hill to climb in front of them. Conversely, the Dodgers have the 26th hardest schedule down the stretch. Their hardest games remaining: 3 against Atlanta, 3 against St. Louis, 3 against the Padres, and 3 against the Marlins. Meanwhile, they get 6 against the Giants. They get 7 against Cincinnati. We only get 3. They get 3 against the Pirates, 2 against Colorado, and 3 against the Nationals. You've got to play really if you want to get the bye. And I do think that the bye matters for a few different reasons. I think reason number 1 that the bye matters is if you're doing the pitching chaos kind of strategy and you're using the pen a lot, then when you get to the wild card, if you're in the wild card, you win the division, you're going to be at home, which is nice. But it's 3 games in 3 days. Your last game is on Sunday, off day on Monday. You play the 29th, the 30th, the 31st. I'm sorry, the 29th, the 30th, and October 1st. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are when you play. So there's no off days. So yes, maybe you're comfortable running your bullpen. If you go to 3 games, are you comfortable running your bullpen in all 3? The problem is you're probably going to use the bullpen in 1 or 2, and if you don't win game 2, now you have to run them in a 3rd game because that's an elimination game. So you're trying to do the pitching chaos. 1, have you had a chance to set up Chris Sale to be your game 1 starter? And 2, can you ride the bullpen that hard to advance? We don't know. If you go to the division series, by contrast, you have that whole week off, right? So you're off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Your first game, NLDS, the 2 NLDSs, the games are game 1 is Saturday, game 2 is Sunday. You don't know, obviously you don't know game times or anything like that yet. But you would play Saturday and Sunday back to back. Monday would be an off day. It'd be a travel day. And then you would play Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday is off. Then you would play Friday. So you have 2 games, off day. 2 games, off day, finale. And again, assuming these all go the distance. So the way that I think of this, personally, is if you get the bye, 1, you've already won a postseason series, essentially, because you just get to skip the wild card. And 2, being in the NLDS, 1, the longer series, the better. because that means there's less of a chance of one bad bounce knocking you from the postseason. Think about that Yankees series, right? The Chris Sale balk in, I think that was game 1, maybe game 2, either way. Like, you would have been done. You'd have been out of the postseason at that point. Just finished, just done. Postseason's over, you're going home. Season's over. Whereas if it was a best of 5, you would have had another opportunity to stay alive. So there is that. And I do think that's worth pointing out. There is another aspect of this, though, I want to mention, because I hear this come up a lot. And I'm not necessarily saying these people are just wrong for thinking this way. I do disagree with this premise, but I'm not necessarily saying that they're wrong for thinking this way. There is a subset of some of the more disillusioned fans who are down on this team, who are frustrated specifically with Alex Anthopoulos and all of that. And one of the main critiques that they have is that we haven't won a postseason series since we won the World Series. And that is objectively true. That is a true statement. We lost 3-1 in the NLDS in both 22 and 23. And then we were season under that specific set of injury circumstances. I believe the stat was no other MLB team has ever made the playoffs in a year where 3 of their opening day starters missed the final 35-plus regular season games. They lost Strider in April, they lost Acuna in May, and they lost Riley in August. And that even undersells how many other injuries Atlanta had. Ozzie came back late in the year, but was only hitting from one side of the plate. He had missed a bunch of time. Your outfield, at one point in time, your lineup was 1/3 DFA'd guys from other teams. Because you had Ramon Laureano, you had Whit Merrifield, and you had Gio Urshela. So 1/3 of your lineup was position players who had been DFA'd because they were bad with their previous team. So, like, just making it was great. But again, they lost. And yes, technically the NLDS, you lost in your first round matchup. It was the second round of the playoffs. It wasn't like you didn't lose in the first round. You lost in your first matchup. You made it to the second round of the playoffs. And that's a distinction that doesn't matter to a lot of people. And I'll admit, it's a little bit pedantic. But if one of the criticisms of the Braves, and this seems to be thrown back on Alex Anthopoulos for some reason. Like I had somebody tell me in 2023, the Braves lost because Alex Anthopoulos didn't reinforce the rotation at the deadline. I'm like, no, the Braves lost because the generationally dominant offense, the first one to have a team slugging of 500 or better in the regular season and tied the all-time record for homers in a season, that offense hit 186 with a 519 OPS. That's why you lost. But, again, if one of the criticisms of Alex Anthopoulos is since the World Series win, this team hasn't gotten a playoff series win, then going to the wild card and winning the wild card, one, it's not going to satisfy those people because they're going to say, then you should have had a bye anyway. So let's just be honest. Don't decide what you want to do to try to satisfy those people because those people are never going to be satisfied. You won a World Series in 2021, and those are the same people that say it was luck. You don't luck into a World Series. Nobody lucks into a World Series. Luck is part of winning for any team. You have to have breaks go your way to win in the postseason because it's such a small sample size. But you don't accidentally win a World Series. They were the best team in baseball from the trade deadline through the end of the season. Everybody talks about how bad that team was as far as record goes at just 88 and 73. But from the trade deadline on, they were the best team in baseball. Anyway. So the only real way in which going to the wild card instead of skipping it and going straight to the NLDS is better for you is to give you the ability, if you win in the wild card, to say, there you go, you've won a postseason series since the World Series. And I'm not saying you can rest your laurels on the World Series. It's been 5 years at this point. You really kind of can't use that as like at least we did this. It's been 5 years. Unless a Phillies or a Mets fan's trying to clown you for something. You can point out that they haven't won a World Series, I'm pretty sure, since like color television's been a thing. So you can just point that out to them. That's fun. But outside of that, the only real reason to want to go to the wild card or to be okay with going to the wild card is if you win, you have the ability to say, at least we won a postseason series. Going to the divisional series is much better from a, one, longer sample size, so a better chance for bad luck to equal out, and the ability to set your rotation and all of that, and the off days. So there you go. If you feel differently, let me know. If there's something that I'm not thinking about in this whole thing, let me know. I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball, right? We're doing Instagram now too, so have fun with that. Let me know if you think that there's something I'm missing from that wild card versus NLDS conversation. Because despite what the Doomers tell you, barring a generational collapse, this team is very likely to make the postseason. In just a minute, though, let's talk about last night's game. Because you got into a hole early, and they couldn't dig out of it. And I think that's the primary concern when you get to October, is a game like what happened last night. We'll break that down next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsey Crosby. Let's talk about last night's game, because my goodness, was that irritating. Braves lose this one 4-2, and Atlanta was down 4-0 in the bottom of the first inning before they recorded a single out. And yikes, some of this was just frustrating as heck, okay? Atlanta got runners on first and third in the top of the first, couldn't bring them in. You're like, okay, they didn't do it there, you have plenty of chances. And then against Martin Perez, Luke Keeschel starts off with a double. He pulls it over to left. He was down 0-2, and it's a changeup below the zone. And I think the thing that I've noticed a lot this year, the thing that I feel like I've seen a lot more this year than in the past, was guys being able to go and get those pitches below the zone and do damage off of them, right? Clearly, they've always done it, but it just feels like this season, the bad ball hitters have been particularly damaging to the Braves. So, you get that. Then then Martin Perez walks Byron Buxton and Ryan Jeffers. 7 pitches each. I'm not going to make a habit out of doing this, and I don't want to be the person that just does this all the time. In the scouting report yesterday, which I didn't put as much attention to it in the podcast version as I did the written version. But I said, hey, Martin Perez has 30 of his 36 walks have come to righties. And I specifically mentioned if you walk Byron Buxton or Ryan Jeffers, giving free base runners, giving the righties some free passes is the path to Minnesota putting up a crooked number on the board. He walks both Buxton and Jeffers. Josh Bell gets up 3-0. And on a 3-1 sinker, it's actually a pretty good pitch. But it's an awkward swing, and it flares towards the right field foul line. And I thought the ball was foul. I thought the ball was going to be in the stands. It lands just at the edge, right by the foul line, but in fair territory. Mike Yastrzemski wasn't able to get there yet. He's hauling. He's almost there. He just barely doesn't get there. And then bounces in the stands. Ground rule double, 2-run score. And then 2 more first pitch singles. One's a soft liner back up the middle from Royce Lewis on a cutter that was like left middle. And then Cody Clemens gets a ground ball that just barely gets past a diving Ozzie Albies. And it was like a sinker that was left too high, again on the first pitch. 4 runs in the span of 3 swings. And yes, he got himself into the initial mess with the 2 walks. But bam, 4-0 hole, no outs recorded. Perez locks in after that. Fly out, strikeout, grind out. He ends the inning, takes him 34 total pitches to get through it. He gets a 6-pitch second inning to stabilize the pitch count and be able to give Atlanta 5. And in the final 3 innings, he allows 4 hits, no runs, no walks, strikes out 2, and Atlanta has a chance to get back into this. But the offense just can't seem to do it. Again, they had that option in the first inning, and they're not able to get that done. They do get some runs. Ronald gets a 2 RBI single in the top of the 5th. Right? Braves have a single and a double, meaning runners on second and third. Ronald brings them both in. And that's the last batter that Bailey Ober faces. But Bailey Ober entered that game with an awful ERA. And Atlanta let him off the hook. Just completely. Since the All-Star break, he had a 5.27 ERA, 16 strikeouts in 27 in the third innings, and he was throwing 88. The only real pitch you had to worry about was the sweeper. So what does Atlanta do? He strikes out 4 in 4 1/3. They only get him for the 2 runs. And this is the pattern that we've seen. The Braves have a chance to rally, and they can't do it against the bullpen. With Ober leaving 1 out in the 5th, the Braves had 1 hit and 2 walks the entire rest of the way. And they still had a chance to come back and score in this one. In the 8th, they're facing Jeff Hoffman. Jeff Hoffman has been struggling. Ronald strikes out. And honestly, it was an awful at-bat from Ronald. He took a slider that was like middle for a strike. He swung at a 1-1 slider that was way off of the plate down and away. And then he took a slider at the very top of the zone for strike 3. Which, not where you're supposed to throw that. But then Atlanta still can't seem to finish this one. Olsen doubles. I will say Michael Harris got robbed. Cody Clemens made a great diving play at second base. Olsen moves to third, but Harris is out. That would have been an RBI base hit had Clemens not made that diving stop. Mauricio Dubón walks, and then Ozzie just flies out to left. They leave the tying run on first base. And then in the 9th, Mike Yastrzemski gets on via a walk. He gets all the way to third, but they could never find a hit to bring in even him, never mind tying the game with a second run. And again, this wasn't Yankees pitching. This wasn't Diamondbacks rotation on a heater right now. This was the Twins. This was Jeff Hoffman, who has had an ERA close to 4. This was Travis Adams, who pitched 2 scoreless innings with no hits, no walks, and 3 strikeouts, despite entering the game with an ERA in the high 5s. This is just the Braves offense in a slump. And the problem is the pitching staff on the whole is not good enough to consistently hold teams to 1 or 2 runs. And that's an unrealistic expectation of any pitching staff. There's guys who can do it, but I think asking your pitching staff as a whole to hold teams to virtually no runs on a daily basis is asking for too much. And this offense in the last couple weeks has not shown the ability to dig out of these holes when they get in them. And that's probably the thing you're going to end up needing to fix. You need to fix that. That's going to be the thing that ends up being the difference to me in the postseason hopes for the Braves. Like, it's that. It's not... Yes, I'm concerned about the pitching, the rotation in the postseason. I also don't think it matters who is the game 2 and 3 starter as much as everyone expects, because it's not going to be a conventional start. It's going to be a fine 27-ounce kind of day. But the offense, you don't have an equivalent fine 20. You don't have an equivalent to that plan on offense. You just got to go out there and hit. And you got to hit against better caliber starters on average than you face in the regular season. And to be clear, the Braves have been good against winning teams this year. Atlanta is 32-24 against teams with winning records. And part of the reason why I tend to not worry about teams like Philadelphia is one, Philly has a significant overperformance in one-run games. They are 22-11 in one-run games. And the run differential is only plus 10. So they should be 64-62, but they're 68-58 because of that one-run performance. But when you look at them against good teams, they're 24-30. They have a losing record against teams over 500. Meanwhile, Milwaukee, 41-21. LA's only 33-33. They're a 500 team against teams over 500, but it's also LA, and they're doing the NBA-style load management. They're not even really trying. A win against the Dodgers in May does not mean anything when you face them in October. So let's be honest. Like, I'm not hanging hopes on that. It's just the offense has to figure it out. And the offense ultimately is going to be what decides whether the Braves go home or advance to the postseason. If you want to get that postseason series win you haven't gotten since 2021, offense is going to have to do it. And my concern right now is they haven't shown the ability to dig out of those holes in the last couple weeks. And yes, positive caveat is they've been facing really good pitching. A negative caveat is that's the same pitching you'll face in October. There's not a huge difference in facing New York's top three, the Yankees, and facing Philly's top three. Other than the fact you've seen Philly's top three more. Which does matter. Does matter. If you're facing Zach Wheeler for a third time in October instead of Cam Schlittler for the first time, that does matter, but still. Offense has to do better. They're going to make or break the team. And the thing that Atlanta needs to figure out is how aggressively do you want to manage now to try and figure out that offense? Do you just keep running the same plan you have out there? We're going to go with the defense option of Jarvis at shortstop and accept that it could be a black hole at the bottom of the lineup like we had last year with Nick Allen. Do you go with the best offensive option in Mauricio Dubón and require Ronald to play the field a little bit more? Or do you try and figure out if Ha-Seong Kim can give you anything by giving him 2 weeks of run or whatever? We'll see. I don't know what they do. I'm really curious to find out. And hopefully, whatever path they choose, they find a way to get this offense hitting before we get into the postseason. That'll do it for Braves Today for Tuesday, August 18th. Please like the video. Please subscribe. I'll see you later today with the scouting report where we break down everything to know about today's starters. So until next time, this has been Braves Today.